Hey, welcome to the Sunday preview for this week. We have a reading from the Gospel of St. Luke. That very day, the first day of the week, two of Jesus' disciples were going to a village 7 miles from Jerusalem called Emmaus. And they were conversing about all the things that had occurred. And it happened that while they were conversing and debating, Jesus himself drew near and walked with them. But their eyes were prevented from recognizing him. He asked them, "What are you discussing as you walk along?" They stopped, looking downcast. One of them, named Cleopas, said in reply, "Are you the only visitor to Jerusalem who does not know of the things that have taken place there in these days?" And he said, "What sort of things?" They said to him, "The things that happened to Jesus the Nazarene, who was a prophet, mighty in word and deed before God and the people, and how our chief priests and rulers both handed him over to a sentence of death and crucified him. We were hoping that he would be the one to redeem Israel. And besides all this, it is now the third day since this took place. Some women from our group, however, have astounded us. They were at the tomb early in the morning and did not find his body. They came back and reported that he had indeed seen a vision. They had indeed seen a vision of angels who announced he was alive. And some of us went to the tomb and found things just as the women had described, but him they did not see." And he said to them, "How foolish you are! How slow of heart to believe all that the prophets spoke! Was it not necessary for the Christ should suffer these things and enter into his glory?" And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he interpreted for them what referred to him in the scriptures. As they approached the village to which they were going, they gave the impression that he was going on farther. But they urged him, "Stay with us, for it is nearly evening, and the day is almost over." So he went in to stay with them. And it happened that while he was at table with them, he took bread, said the blessing, broke it, and gave it to them. With that, their eyes were opened, and they recognized him. But he vanished from their sight. Then they said to each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us while he spoke to us on the way and opened the scriptures to us?" So they set out at once and returned to Jerusalem, where they found gathered together the 11 and those with them who were saying, "The Lord has truly been raised and has appeared to Simon." Then the two recounted what had taken place on the way and how he was made known to them in the breaking of the bread. The Gospel of the Lord. Well, this is a great gospel with the center of it being the Eucharist. It takes place on Easter morning. And these two disciples had heard, that the tomb was empty, but they were going to Emmaus 7 miles away and presumably moving on with their lives. Kind of defeatist mentality. They didn't know of the resurrection yet. And they're dejected and discouraged and returning to the life they had before and talking about these things. And in that situation, in that kind of state, they're not seeing everything that happened with the eyes of faith. And so that's why their eyes were blocked from seeing who Jesus truly was as he walked along beside them. And that's the way it is for us too. When we just try to reason out our problems and we don't approach them with faith or dependence on God or ask for the Holy Spirit to give us guidance, well, we go round and around in futile arguments and discussions, and we never really get to the fullness of the truth. So Jesus begins to speak to them, and their hearts start to burn when he explains the scriptures, because he's pushing them to see it again with eyes of faith, that all these things were necessary for the Messiah to redeem Israel, and that he was the one redeeming Israel, but by a way of doing it that they hadn't expected and they hadn't counted on. And they finally recognize him in the breaking of the bread, which is the scripture's way of describing the Eucharist. When he says the blessing and breaks the bread, that's the moment of the Mass. And that's the moment where the bread and the wine become the body and blood of Christ. And then their faith is awakened, and they begin to see him for what he truly is. And then the last step is that they have to go out and proclaim that. They don't keep it to themselves. they run back to Jerusalem and they communicate that truth to the other disciples. And that's the way we have to be. Once our faith is awakened and we recognize Jesus in the Eucharist, we have to go and proclaim that as well.